Right. So the previous title of this talk was Accessibility, a dirty word, and I changed it and crossed out accessible for a reason. So I am really into inclusive products and designing lovable products that, this one? All right. Okay. Lovable products that lots of people can use. But every time I tried to get people to think about inclusiveness, they'd think I was talking about accessibility. And every time I talked about accessibility, then they thought I was talking only about disability. Here we're going to talk through a few reasons why that is incorrect. If you're wondering why I'm here, I used to work at Condé Nast International. And that beautiful design that powers those 22 websites was my information architecture work. Now I'm concerned again with a global audience because I have to create products that work with our audience from around 150 countries, and we hope to increase that over time. So I'm going to talk through a few things that have happened to me in the last few months, which I think are quite interesting. I had to find a new place to live when I moved back to London in May. So over the summer, I went house hunting. I do not want to do it again anytime soon. But one of the companies I'd heard about that I was interested in was called Purple Bricks. And I go off to fill in their registration so I can do some viewings with their agents. And they had 4 options available for me: Mr., Mrs., Miss, and Doctor. I chose Doctor. And was amused every time communication came through or I went for a viewing and they were like, oh, Dr. Kalu. It's probably the closest I get to being a doctor. The Connect from Microsoft was introduced to great success in North America and Europe, but didn't do quite so well when it was launched in Japan. So people had created this product, but forgotten to check what context people were going to be using them if they launched it in countries that had smaller apartment sizes than people in Seattle are probably used to. I think this is the ETA form or the ESTA. There's a bunch of forms that I need to fill in, and I need to guess whether they're going to put me in Great Britain, England, United Kingdom, and this is all on the same site. Thinking about the customers that you're designing for, it's super important. And the most recent is I was working with a company to try to get a chatbot, against my will, onto our website. And the chatbot was unsuccessful. It returned 60% erroneous responses to queries. And the company, the provider, did a postmortem, and they came back with this quote: "Didn't really expect people not to speak English fluently. We have a global audience, 150 countries. What did you think?" So that's a few things. And you'll notice that none of those examples I gave you are accessibility. I'm really concerned about accessibility, but it's part of a broader picture of inclusivity. So you're probably wondering, why should you even care? Why am I telling you off if you're not creating inclusive products? Well, it used to be that you'd create products, so you'll have services, and they were all local. There were people that looked like you, maybe like on the same street as you. But now we have superpowers. We have companies that have 1 billion customers. You're not going to get round to 1 billion customers if you don't think about inclusivity. Apple did not get into accessible design, inclusive design, just because they wanted to. And other people have to pay attention because now people won't agree, people won't accept poor products. They now know what good can be. And I'm not going to tell you, your competition is doing it. I'm not going to tell you it's the right thing to do, but it makes money. The Googles and the Apples are not only inclusive or accessible because they want to do the right thing. They also know it makes them a bunch of money. So if you want to make money, make some inclusive products. So that's what, that's why. So we go into the bit that's a little bit more tricky. So accessibility standards have been documented by many, many, many companies. You can go to the WCAG, you have the Elsevier checklist, you have companies like DEC and the Paciello group. They can all come in and help you to get your product accessible. You can build in a bunch of things into your process, but who's really tackling how we make inclusive products? This is just a starting list. I expect it to evolve over time, but here are my thoughts for how you can start to get your product from potentially not inclusive to more inclusive. First of all, you need to be aware about some of the aspects of inclusive design that you need to pay attention to. Does your product not think about how people from different races will view it? Has no one thought about what your copy, your interactions, your colors might mean for people of different races? When you're designing forms, have you got Miss and Mrs.? Have you thought about different genders? Have you thought about the full spectrum, including the non-binary, the genderqueer, trans? How are they looking at that form? Do you really need a title in your form? Culture. What are you thinking about when you're trying to design for China or Russia? I had to create that information architecture for Condé Nast that would work for Cyrillic, for Katakana, for Mexican customers, a bunch of different cultures that have to interact with the same product. Google's designing for their next billion users. So they designed first for a world where everyone has smartphones, where everyone has broadband or 4G or 5G or wherever we are now. But now they're looking at that future, the world, where people don't understand your desktop metaphors because they got introduced to the internet on a mobile phone. And that's the world I have to design for because lots of my recipients are in countries where they don't have access to 5G for sure. Accessibility is on that list, final, but it's not the least important. It's super important, extremely important. If your product in 2020 is not even trying to be accessible, we have a problem. And we have a problem that 90% of digital products right now are currently inaccessible. 90%. The internet is less accessible now than it was 30 years ago. We've created entire ecosystems that are designed to exclude people. Instagram, Twitter, I look at you. So, what do you need to do? Natalie Portman gave a speech, I think 2 years ago, I can't remember now because we're in 2020. And one of the things that she said was, you should be embarrassed if your entire team looks like you. And I'm going to repeat that sentiment. You will not get you will not get all the way, for sure, if you have a team of homogeneous people trying to build an inclusive product. So if you're in a position to hire, please hire someone different. If you're not in a position to hire, recommend some people or something, but get your team looking a little bit different. Once you've got that diverse team, or once you're on the way to having that diverse team, then you need to start auditing your product. If Purple Bricks had had one woman look at that form before they put it live, they would have done different things. They'd have made different choices. So all you need on your teams, or all you need to audit your product, is to have those different lenses, those different perspectives looking at your product. And they'll start to see things, because you don't know what you don't know. I've had to change my product. In fact, after doing the Condé Nast, the first iteration was launching Vogue Germany. I was super thrilled. I was like, whoa, image-led product. Then I spoke to a guy who is blind. And he's like, well, don't know about that. And then you think about the journey a little bit. Ooh, hadn't really thought about designing an entire image-led experience. Luckily, we followed the standards, and so it wasn't inaccessible. But it got me thinking that just by not interacting with different types of people, I missed an opportunity to design something better. Now, you don't go from not being accessible or not being inclusive to being inclusive in one single leap. At least if you're realistic, you can't do that, because done is better than perfect. So the thing I like to do is to just go, can I pick one group that has been previously excluded at this time? If we didn't think about race or we didn't think about gender, can we get some people from this one group and make the product better for them? And then keep iterating, and slowly you'll get to the end. Now, we all have good intentions, but someone like GitHub went from, so they have green. Green is a very tricky color from an accessibility perspective. So they wanted to go accessible, and they wanted to do it big bang. So they changed their green. And there was uproar. Everyone was very emotional, very upset about the change in the green. So they quickly rolled that back, and now they're iterating one hue at a time until one day the green will be different and no one will have noticed. You want that kind of change in your system. If you can't go big bang, I mean, obviously we'd love to make it all inclusive, but the work will never be done, because things that we know now, we didn't know 10 years ago. Things that we knew 10 years ago, we didn't know 20 years ago. So there'll always be a new frontier for your product to be inclusive. Iterate, do little bits, and then try again. Next, you need to get it into your process. So now, if you want to make your product accessible, I use accessibility a lot because that's sort of got standards, 30 years old. And you can build in, you can use Pally in your development. You can use Circle CI and make it break when things are released that are not accessible. We should start thinking about how we get our products, how we get our processes to be a little bit more inclusive. So I like that little roadmap for the AI stuff in the talk, 2 talks ago. You need to think about all of the little gates that your products need to cross so that they can become inclusive. And the final step is just do it all over again. So even if we got some sort of inclusive standards and our products become inclusive one day, it's probably going to be out of date in inclusivity as we find out something new. So just get ready to start again and include one more group that's currently excluded. Thank you.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions. This is what happens when you have too many tabs open.
It's okay.
Still too many tabs.
I really shouldn't have gone after the Prosecco.
Maybe tell a joke.
I'm terrible at telling jokes, sorry.
I've got
Even if I repeat other people's jokes, they don't come out funny.
All right, okay. Loading. Woo! Okay. Q&A. Okay. How can we include inclusivity in planning phases or projects?
I think just thinking about it. If you start by thinking, how can I make this product inclusive? How can I bring inclusivity into the creation of this product? You'll automatically start moving in the direction of inclusivity. And not just the one where you do it as a box-ticking exercise, like for real. And hire someone that's different from who you've always had in the team. That would be a good start.
Cool. That was it on the Slido. Does anybody in the audience have any questions they want to bring up? Okay. Do you want the mic? Yeah, I'll give you the mic anyway. Oh.
Yeah, how do you differentiate between profit and exploit?
Profit and exploit. By including the people that you want to be inclusive towards, it will be more profit than exploit. I'm not a business person, but my personal ethos is that no one person needs £1 billion or £1 billion anything really, except maybe Zimbabwean dollars, in their lives. So if your business model is moving you towards individuals having billions, you're probably exploiting.
Okay, I think that's it for time. So one more round of applause for Chimmy.
Thank you.